Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated. Welcome back to Nerds Amalgamated. This week we're talking about the future of DC and Warner Brothers, who could possibly be taken out completely if Superman fails, the effects of tariffs on gaming and why the publishers are welcoming the death of retail, and 2 times supernovas triggered Earth extinction events. That last one sounds a bit clickbaity now. Here's the top 2 supernovas.
Brought to you by BuzzFeed. Remember BuzzFeed when they did that shit?
I mean, it's not just BuzzFeed. 90% of the internet is stupid listicles.
Yeah, but BuzzFeed popularized it, though. It made it more jarring to look at.
All right, so Warner Brothers. Why are they so close to shutting down, DJ?
So, a report from an insider suggested the future of DC and Warner Brothers heavily depends on the success of the upcoming Superman movie. If the film performs, it could put the entire DC universe at risk, potentially leading to major changes in leadership, strategy, or even the cancellation of planned projects. The report highlights that Warner Brothers' financial struggles and how Superman is seen as a critical test for James Gunn's.
The Dune movies are Warner Brothers, aren't they?
They are, but they're not. Like, they are Warner Brothers, but they're not part of DC.
No, but this article says that DC itself, Warner Brothers itself, is at risk if Superman flops.
Yep.
And that would mean we wouldn't get Dune Part 3.
Oh, shit.
And then I would go postal.
So, are you going to be like that Angry Post guy back in the day where he goes up to the clock tower and starts killing people?
No, I have bigger plans. I'm going to be especially upset if they film the whole thing, finish editing it, and then refuse to release it.
Oh, Jesus. But this is there are a lot of questions, though, even though this is it's highlighting the future of Superman and the future of Superman, DC, and Warner Brothers. And you look at it from a sequential point of view. There are a lot of questions you have to ask, though, like who is this insider and how credible are they? Like, what risks do Warner Brothers face if Superman fails, and are there any backup plans, for example?
Well, I'm not entirely convinced that this insider knows anything that the public doesn't. Because we already know Warner Brothers and DC are on shaky ground because they keep failing at making good movies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Warner Brothers owned Rooster Teeth up until they shut that down.
You mean they shut it down before they brought it back up again?
No, it was bought up by who was it? Was it Gus or Bernie who bought Rooster Teeth back?
Bernie bought it back.
Yeah, so he's bought it back from Warner Brothers. It's no longer a Warner Brothers thing.
Yeah.
But they ran Rooster Teeth into the ground. I'm completely blanking on other things that they've run into the ground in the past few years. But there's a lot.
They
Coyote vs. Acme.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I remember that one.
They've not released that for some reason, even though it's, as far as I'm aware, completely finished.
They also ran down the Batgirl movie as well.
Yep. They cancelled Batgirl at the last minute.
Yep.
Like, we've been hearing about them being utter failures at making movies for at least 5 years now.
Yeah.
So no wonder the people are looking at them and thinking, what are they going to do? How are they going to save themselves?
Yeah. But that's interesting. They're making it sound like this is the only movie that's touted to save the company. Well, history says otherwise. There have been examples of big budget superhero movies that have saved the company, but that touted to save the company but failed. Like a good example would be the Amazing Spider-Man 2 by Sony. They expected this movie to be to launch the Sony Spider-Man cinematic universe, leading up to the Sinister Six, Venom, and other spin-offs. But that failed, only grossing 709 million worldwide,
Is
and
that the Andrew Garfield one?
yep, yep, yeah. That was critically panned, and this forced Sony to collaborate with Marvel to reboot Spider-Man again. Then,
And again,
and,
just
ah,
give Spider-Man a break, guys.
then there was the 2017 Justice League movie, and I mean the Joss Whedon one, which this was touted to be DC's answer to the Avengers, and that failed horribly. With
Yeah,
the
because they were like, here's the Avengers, but you have no reason to care about any of the characters. And you're going to introduce them all in one movie. So none of them get any time to have any growth.
mind you, mind you, this version of Justice League, Zack Snyder did all the work. Joss just came in and just went, you know what? Yeah, I don't like I don't like that version. I'm just gonna chop and change stuff. I'm gonna amp up the color in one aspect of the movie. I'm just gonna add humor into this just to make it Marvel-like, but not Marvel-like.
Well, it's not the only time someone's gone and taken a movie and recut it.
Hmm.
Coming back to June, the original 1984 June movie.
Yeah.
I can picture his face. I can't remember his name now.
The director,
The director, yeah.
Lynch.
Yes, David Lynch took his name off it because somebody else did most of the editing work and he was so embarrassed by it.
Oh yeah. Didn't he change? Didn't he mockingly changed his name to as a credit though, like John Smith or something like that?
Alan Smithy. It's apparently common for directors who aren't happy with the final product to
Ah.
be credited as Alan Smithy.
And then there were, back to the superhero movies that had expectations. So the most infamous one, Morbius. And yes, this is the
What do you mean Morbius flop?
Yeah, it was
Everyone loved when Morbius came out and said it's morbing time.
well. There was the expectation that this was going to expand the Spider-Man villain universe, and as a result, it became a meme due to poor script and execution, and it flopped twice, even after being re-released due to the ironic online hype.
Yeah, it wasn't part of that because it came out during COVID.
I think
And it was like, they were like, oh, everyone missed it because they were inside. And then they re-released it after everyone had been making jokes about it.
according to the article, according to the wiki here, they said it premiered in Mexico City and was theatrically released in the US on April 1st after being delayed several times from the initial July 2020 date due to COVID.
Yeah, so I could see them thinking the first release failed because people were in lockdown. Like, now I can't think of any movies that came out in 2020. I know there were a couple that came out and flopped because of the lockdowns.
Didn't Tenet came out in 2020?
Yeah, Tenet came out in 2020.
Here we go. Top 20. He picks
And it's like, if you look at 2020 without knowing the context, it's a huge dip in movie revenue because nobody was going to the movies.
Yeah.
So I could see them thinking that, yeah, no one went to it because of X. Let's re-release it, when the reason no one went to it was also because it was crap.
I just realized just today that COVID was 5 years ago. Can you believe that? I was like, what the hell? Oh, but there were other movies that hit really well, like in 2020. Look at one, Sonic the Hedgehog for one.
That came out at a much better time though.
There was also Wonder Woman 1984.
I thought that one flopped.
Yeah. There was another flop was the New Mutant as well. Then there was A Quiet Place 2, A Quiet Place Part 2, sorry.
Yeah, so Sonic came out in February, which was just before the Western world was hit with COVID.
Then there was
It wasn't until March that things really started to go nuts in the West.
Yeah. what else was it? There was also Mulan that came, the live action Mulan, mind you. There was also Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I mean, there were a few movies that came out, but yeah, you're right. There were a lot of them were flops, and yeah, Sonic came at a better time.
And it's not just that the movies were bad, it's also because everyone was inside.
And I think that was around that time when streaming picked up a lot of
Yeah.
pace, and as a result.
It was Scarlett Johansson, wasn't it, who sued because her contract said she would get royalties on the cinema revenue,
There was
and they didn't release it in cinemas. They went straight to streaming, so she didn't get the royalties she expected.
She wasn't the only one. There was also I think Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins as well. They got financially screwed after uh Wonder Woman 1984. But yeah, yeah, you're right. Scarlett Johansson was the big one that caught a lot of headlines for what happened. But then okay, back to the DC universe and the movie flops though. Like this is with Superman. What I don't understand is how is it seen as a critical test for James Gunn's DC Universe film, even though it's the first one? Like it'd be like writing off the whole franchise after one movie.
Well, it's not the first one. They also gave him the shows,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
they've had shows already. And the Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know which one. The Creature Commandos. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the first thing he's done, but
Hmm.
it's the first one that people will recognize as a thing, even if they're not into comics. So they've been limping along for the last 5 years or whatever,
Yeah,
and gotten to the point now where they need something to make them a bunch of money, or they're going to run out of money.
yeah. And
So
mind
they've
you,
got Superman, which
oh,
is going to be huge because everyone knows Superman.
yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. And you're right. He's going to be huge, and he is DC's most iconic superhero, and it's a flagship character. And yeah, if it gets well received, it will revive the enthusiasm for the DC brand, which has been going through a little bit. Well, okay, putting it lightly, a little bit, going through a very hard hitting, painful process in terms of reorganizing. Like, look at the old DC universe with the Zack Snyder universe and
Yeah,
how.
so yeah, now it's been however long of flops. If
Hmm,
they don't make it big with Superman, they're going to run out of money. That's basically what they're saying.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and what's going to be also interesting is if James Gunn's work gets really well received, this could lay a groundwork for other franchises in the DC universe. Like, we could see maybe the next Batman movie, for example, or the next Supergirl movie, or the Authority as well.
Yeah, but none of them are going to come out if Warner Brothers shuts down because they run out of money.
And that's going to be a very scary thought. Like, if because Warner Brothers is it is the studio for those heroes. We like ever since our childhoods. Like, this was the studio that we recognize when it comes to the DC heroes. Like, it'd be impossible to look at any other studio that can do that shit. Like, can you imagine DreamWorks Studio doing a DC movie? That would just be absolutely laughable, if anything.
I reckon pretty animated superheroes would do all right.
Yeah, I know it may do all right, but can it like be a long project? I mean, Shrek. I mean, yeah, like they're good. DreamWorks would be good at like other have been good with franchises like Shrek and The Croods for one, Ice Age. But yeah, but can they do multiples of that multiple spin-offs of a certain franchise? That'd be the one big question. And Kung Fu Panda like Kung Fu Panda with their spin-off shows. Can they do something similar to that with the DC shows?
Yes.
You reckon?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Although, okay, our here's another question though. If Superman fails, for example, maybe they could stick to the devil they know, and that's Batman. I mean, Batman movies have been
Please
always
no.
Come on.
There are other superheroes. If every movie has to be a superhero movie,
Yeah.
then please make it a different superhero.
Yeah, but come on. Out of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, what other heroes do you know of that brings in money harder than hard?
Well, who knew about Iron Man or Guardians of the Galaxy before those movies? Only the hardcore comic fans.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's what Marvel did. They took a bunch of B list characters and made them the centerpiece of their movie stuff. It's not like they took the famous ones that everyone knows, like Superman. They started off with the characters that were less popular.
but at least with the Marvel side, with when Guardians of the Galaxy was made, there was at least an underlying story intricately weaved into it.
You're talking
So
about the half a reference to the Infinity Stones.
yeah, yeah,
Because it stands alone. The first Guardians of the Galaxy stands alone pretty well. It's not intricately weaved at all. They barely acknowledge the overarching story.
yeah.
And then I don't think they acknowledge it at all in Guardians 2.
Nah, they didn't. Got two. No, no, they didn't. They didn't acknowledge it at all in 2 and 3. No, but this is going to be an interesting test for James Gunn because it's him becoming a lone director in a Marvel. Goes from a lone director in a Marvel movie to someone like Kevin Feige overseeing an entire franchise.
Yeah, they basically just pushed him into that because he's their most popular comic director.
Yeah. They, I like how they touted him as like the cinematic messiah for comic book movies.
Anyway, who do you think would replace DC? They shut down.
If Warner Brothers Studios shut down for maybe I hate to say it, I could see Sony doing it, but no, maybe not Sony.
Yeah, but the comic side.
The comic side.
Yeah,
Ooh.
because the two big comics are DC and Marvel.
Hmm.
If DC flops, who will replace DC?
Oh, I could see Image Comics coming in. Maybe Valiant, if possible. That's my guess. I'm not. How about you, Professor? What would you pick? Who would you
The only
pick?
one that comes to mind is Dark Horse, and that's only because they own Firefly.
Yeah, yeah.
So if Dark Horse got to be a major comic distributor, we might get
Hmm.
more Firefly content.
Yeah, I guess so.
But Firefly is also owned by Fox, which is owned by Disney, and they own Marvel. So I'm not sure when the last time Dark Horse published a Firefly comic was.
Dark Horse Comics. Last time they published was a while ago, actually.
Yeah, it looks like they're
Miller World.
published by Boom now.
Yeah. Their last comic book project was 2023, and it was Miller World with
Yeah, I found an article here. Dark Horse had the rights to do Firefly comics from 2005 to 2017, and there's been a bunch of issues of Firefly from Boom since 2018. But they have unfortunately cancelled the license as of 2025.
yeah.
I just want more Firefly.
You just want more Firefly.
Do you not?
I mean, I'm okay with I'm okay if you want more Firefly. I'm just wondering how much more Firefly can you take?
All of it.
All right
Like,
then.
I've got to track down these comics now that I found out about them because I haven't actually read anything since they left Dark Horse.
Oh yeah, yep,
I didn't realize that they'd been bought out by Boom, or not bought out, they transferred the license to Boom.
yeah.
So,
But
yeah, it's
I don't like as much as you and I would both love to see like DC Comics moving to somewhere else. Like I don't see the Warner Brothers Studios shutting down because yeah, Batman and Superman, the universe is too huge to be moved to a different area.
no, but I can see them losing their position as one of the two big pillars.
Yeah, I guess so.
They might even have to sell off some of their portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, their gaming studios hasn't been doing well, so maybe that could be written off, I think.
I just hope that when they do collapse, they don't get bought out by Disney.
Like every other company, like every
Yeah.
other company, hope they don't get eaten up by Disney.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of companies that do want to get bought by Disney because it comes with a big payout, but I hope that they don't because it's just I don't like the idea of having everything under the one roof.
Actually, I just thought of a studio that could potentially revive the DC Universe franchise. You might not like this. Amazon
Yeah, that's another massive conglomerate that I
have disagreements with.
yeah,
I mean, I mean, sure. Even if I grant you have disagreements they're doing well with the superhero franchise. I mean, Invincible has been has done well for them recently. Rings of Power still going, even though people still hate that shit.
I've heard it got better.
Yeah.
But I am impressed that they've managed to do anything at all, considering they started with just the appendix of the Lord of the Rings, because they only had the rights to what was in the Lord of the Rings, not
Yeah,
the Silmarillion. So I'm impressed that they managed to put anything together, but they obviously had to be legally distinct from the Silmarillion and the other works.
yeah. But yeah, Invincible. I mean, with the success of Invincible, maybe they could they could they could take DC Universe, or there is another one. I just also found realized Netflix. Netflix could take it.
I don't think Netflix is in the position to do that.
Yeah,
I think they're not big enough at the moment. Maybe a decade ago, before, like, if Warner Brothers had been in this position a decade ago,
yeah,
I could see Netflix making a deal to create DC content. But Netflix has been getting smaller since everyone else has decided to cut out the middleman.
yeah. So the options are there, but then the problem would be the price tags for each project. So yeah.
Well, speaking of price tags,
Oh boy.
the US tariffs are bad for gamers. Yeah, duh. But analysts are saying that it might kill the retail market, and publishers would love that. So the analyst that they've requested to talk about this,
Mm,
Reese Elliott at Media Research, but that's MIDIA, basically said that things are going to get more expensive because a lot of the components are made in China. Like, even the things that you can't legally sell to China still made out of parts from China, which is a bit funny because they were putting restrictions on the sale of Nvidia cards to China
yeah.
because they didn't want China building AI farms.
Wasn't it crypto farms when COVID was a thing? Like how people were just hoarding a lot of GPUs at the time?
Yeah, and then that's turned around and become AI farms.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's the reason the prices, apart from the gouging, the prices haven't gone down because it's being buoyed along by the AI use. Because it turns out that it's more profitable for Nvidia to sell AI GPUs to AI companies than it is to sell the GPUs to consumers. They're two separate products, but they use the same parts. So by creating AI cards, they're taking parts out of the market for end users to buy for their PCs.
Ah, that's really
Yeah, so because so much of consumer electronics is made in China, the tariffs are going to be a big impact on that for the US. He suggests that some manufacturers will shift to non tariff countries as a result, but points out that that's a bit of an issue because consoles are typically sold at a loss or break even, and the company makes the money back on the games once you're locked into their ecosystem.
not to mention when you if you also to non-tariff markets, it will also be a bit of a financial hassle just moving all of your stuff and well, not really
Yeah,
your stuff, not it's your machine works or
yeah, it'll take time to set up the supply chain to work around the tariffs.
yeah. And that's not
And
and that's not an easy feat. That's
no,
yeah.
especially considering, like, if you want to avoid Chinese manufacturing of CPUs, like, most of them are made by Intel and TSMC, which is in Taiwan, aka not China. I don't believe TSMC is hit by the tariffs. I haven't actually looked into it myself though. Anyway, if you want to buy a part that is made in China, these parts are so complex and require extremely complicated fabrication. You're looking at the best part of a decade to set up a new CPU fabricator. So any parts that require okay, so yeah, it looks like TSMC's not affected by the tariffs, which is good for us, I guess. Well, for the users in America, not us so much because we're Australian, so we're not affected by the tariffs.
Yet. I
Oh
mean,
no, the
oh,
Australian government has said that they won't be putting tariffs on American stuff. They'll be using other avenues to. They'll be exploring other avenues, basically.
yeah. But you were saying
Uh,
about the processor and making processes hard.
Yeah, making processors and electronic components is so complicated that you're looking at the best part of a decade to spin up a new fab. And a lot of companies probably won't bother doing that because it takes so long. And there's a good chance all of this will be overturned in another 4 years when Trump gets replaced.
Yeah.
And there'd be no point in flipping this unless they're sure that there'd be no point in flipping and building a new fab unless they're sure that it's going to benefit them at some point in the next, in 10 years, not now. The analyst also says that game discs sold in the US are made in Mexico, which is another country being tariffed. So this is a accelerator to the death of physical games.
Ah,
You might have
shit.
noticed that consoles have been moving away from CDs for the last decade. The latest consoles don't even come with disc readers. That's an external attachment, or you have to buy the Pro model.
Yeah.
And they'd like that because it kills the pre-owned and rental market. So everyone who wants to buy a copy of the game must buy it new through the publisher.
I mean, I'm at two minds about this. I mean, on the one hand, if you're killing the retail side, at least you'll be like, yes, I can cut out the fucking middleman, and I can buy it from the game devs themselves. That's one thing. That's
Well,
one thing.
you can already do that for a lot of indie games.
Oh yeah, from
Like
Steam, yeah.
Factorio, you can go to Factorio and buy the game from the developer for a particular price off their website and get a Steam key. This is more about mass market games, like by the big publishers, not by indies.
Oh yeah, but
Because
yeah, even
indies
with
have always been working around the middleman because they don't have
but
the volume to involve a middleman.
But even if with mass market games, at least you can like, yes, I can go to the Bethesda website and buy the fucking game, or I can go to the EA website and buy the fucking game, or I can go to the Capcom website and buy the fucking game.
Okay, and without the pre-owned market to drive prices down, what stops them from making every game $150?
Ah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't. Okay, but then if you take out the pre-owned market, wouldn't that just support the argument of game ownership in a sense?
No,
No,
because having the physical discs is the closest thing we have to owning the game. You don't
that's right.
own a copy of the game that you own on Steam.
That's right.
Technically, you don't even own the game on disc, but they can't come into your house and take the disc off you.
That's right. If I recall, it's a digital license. That's right. Yeah, of the game. I mean, that's the other half. Like, even if you take it'll make the games the pre-owned market. It will lower the price of the games. Yeah, that's the other half of it. Like on one end, like it take out the middleman, and I can buy it directly from the source. But on the other hand, yeah, the price might jack up, and I'll have to force to going into a reseller. But the problem is with a reseller is they can also jack it up as well of a pre-owned game.
No, they can't.
They can't.
They can only charge as much as the market will bear. Basic economics here. They can't charge $1 billion for a CD if you can buy the same game from the publisher for $80 or whatever a game is going for these days. Because I know I haven't bought a AAA game for a while. I've mostly been not at full price anyway. So Yeah, if you can buy the game secondhand or you can buy it new for $80, there's no reason for the secondhand game to cost more than, 75% as much as the new version, because then you'll just go and buy the new version.
Yeah.
But if you take either one of those out of the system, like the publisher shuts down and stops selling the game, then the price of the CDs goes through the roof. You can see this with games for the NES and the SNES. They're now going for hundreds of dollars for a game that, like, significantly more than they would have cost new in the 90s. And you take out the resale market, there's nothing stopping the publisher putting the game up to $1 billion. Because if I can go and buy the CD used, why would I pay $1 billion for the new thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Although
And it's
the
also bad for game preservation.
yeah.
Because if you want to preserve the game, like, having the CD is the best way to do that currently, because you can copy the CD. There's loopholes in the DCMA for personal backups, and other related laws have stuff like that. The point is, really, what are you going to do to preserve a digital only game that you can't get on CD when Steam goes away?
I mean, you can go back to the good old days of torrenting and burning games on CDs.
Yeah, that depends on people being able to crack the game to begin with, and also that the game doesn't rely on a server. Like, you can't. There are games that are multiplayer only that have shut down that you can't play anymore, even if you have the disc, because you can't connect to the server.
Yeah, you only play it offline. Yeah.
Not even that. Some
Oh,
games are set up so that you just can't. You can't play on single player without getting onto the server.
oh yeah, yeah. So this will affect not only the gamers. This will also affect gaming in the long run in terms of quality of the game as well.
How?
Like imagine if with these tariffs, man, gaming studios are forced to like cut costs in the production of the game, and the quality of the game could go down.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit of a nebulous thing that would
Mm,
be hard to define. It's really the quality of the game. Like, it's not like you're having to buy your ones and zeros from somewhere else to get around the tariffs and
yeah,
getting a lower quality product. It's more that if the price of things like consoles and discs doesn't go up because of the tariffs, the company making the product will have to absorb that increase, and then they might have less money to put towards making the game. But yeah, that's hard to define.
yeah. Do you reckon this sort of move also, how it said it accelerates the death of game press? Do you reckon this also accelerates the gaming? Well, everyone's saying we're gonna have a gaming crash, but you reckon this sort of thing will accelerate it as well?
I think no, because there's enough indies now. Distribution is a non-issue because of the internet. So indies don't have to worry about printing discs and stuff. Realistically, you can cut your distribution costs almost to zero by selling online only. And if you then go through Steam, you're losing 30% or whatever of your take, but because Steam gets their cut. But
Yeah.
you are also, yeah, no distribution costs or anything there. I think we'd only see a major gaming crash if there's no way to put together a gaming public, an audience, because the economy has gone that bad that people aren't buying games anymore, which is easy to do. Games are a luxury product. You don't need them to stay alive, unfortunately,
Mm,
for the game developers. So you're not making any money off a public who are one paycheck away from homelessness.
yeah. Also, mind you, with this sort of deal, how will this affect organizations like Humble Bundle and the GOG because they're famous.
Well, GOG is based out of Europe. Humble Bundle is owned by IGN, who I believe are American. But yeah, they're digital only. So unless there are tariffs on digital products, it won't affect them.
And then mind you, if say if there are also other places that sell the game online, like Kickstarter, for example. They're also famous for releasing online games as well.
Usually, if you release through Kickstarter, you still also release on Steam. Kickstarter is more of a place to get funding to pay for your development costs.
Okay.
So you sell pre-orders of the game to pay for you to make the game. So we can hope that this won't cause the extinction of the games industry. But it looks like there have been at least 2 Earth extinctions caused by supernovas in the past. Yep, the Royal Astronomical Society has released a press release saying that there are 2 mass extinction events, the Devonian and the Ordovician? Yeah. Which were 2 major extinction events. The Ordovician maybe extinction killed 60% of marine invertebrates at a time when life was largely confined to the sea, and the Devonian extinction wiped out 70% of all species. And the reason this has happened is because the Earth's ozone layer is basically being blown away by a supernova.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and the authors of the paper say that it's an illustration of how massive stars act as both creators and destructors of life. And that's because supernovas are responsible for spreading heavy elements around. Basically, in the core of a star, as it's dying, you get heavy elements form. Things that are vital to forming planets and life. If you look at the way the universe developed, we started off with just particular types of stars. So, according to the theories, we started off with just hydrogen. Hydrogen fuses into helium in a fusion reaction. 2 hydrogen, 1 helium. Supernova spreads helium around. And then from there, you can fuse and fission elements into other elements, similar to what you'd see in a fusion reactor. And yeah, so you just need the huge, like, fusion reactors are compared to building a star because you need the massive pressure and heat that to fuse some of these elements together to create other elements.
The fabled Higgs boson particle would be there, wouldn't it?
No, that's on a different level.
Okay.
Higgs bosons are more like mostly, well, they're subatomic particles. So they're mostly irrelevant to the fusion reactions. Now, obviously, they are relevant because the things making up the element are what defines the things making up the atoms in the element are what defines the element. But as I understand it, they're not part of the fusion reaction. So the study did a census of stars within a kiloparsec, about 3,260 light years of the sun. And the stars, known as OB stars, are distributed at a particular rate that tells the scientists that when they go off and cause a supernova, because you only get supernovas from particular sizes of star, like our star, the sun, will not supernova. It will become a more like a red giant and then shrink and become a brown dwarf, I think. But by doing this study, the scientists were able to calculate how often supernovas occur and where. And by looking at that, they were able to say there's certain numbers of supernovas every however many million years, there's likely to be a supernova within this distance of the Earth, and that is enough to wipe out the ozone layer and cause a mass extinction.
So, but okay, here's the thing with supernovas. Like normally, when people supernovas, it'll be like this one big gigantic event that will destroy the Earth and all of life. How is it that these supernovas then they haven't destroyed the Earth? Like by now, I should be talking to you on a floating rock right about now.
Well, that's the thing, the radiation from the sun mostly.
Hmm.
So the supernova blows away the ozone layer, and then the radiation from the sun, the UV radiation, is unchecked and can penetrate into the earth and kill off most life. It's only the life that is deep in the oceans that would survive such a disaster. So we're looking at supernovas that have wiped out all of the surface life, and the deep sea fish have then repopulated the earth.
So does that mean with this sort of study the chances of traveling into space, it's impossible in terms of, yeah, you can travel to space, just be on the just be careful on the off chance that a supernova might hit around you.
Well, that's already a much greater risk from the sun because the Earth is protected by magnetic belts, magnetic fields, which block the radiation from the sun and form what are called the Van Allen belts, which are belts of radiation. Basically, they divert it around the Earth and it forms these layers of radiation around the Earth. So, astronauts going to space already have to contend with that. And the good news is that, according to the paper, there are mostly there are not sorry, it's not likely for a supernova to occur close to Earth anytime soon that will be strong enough to affect the planet. So the only two stars nearby that could supernova within the next million years or so are Antares and Betelgeuse. That's the. I'll just point out, you know how I always say Linux instead of Linux?
Yep.
I do that a lot with astronomy as well because I read a lot of astronomy books when I was young.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was older and I heard actual astronomers talking, and I was like, so that's how you say that.
What word was it that made you go, "That's how you say it"?
Oh, a lot of them.
Okay.
So, anyway, Antares and Betelgeuse are far enough away from Earth that if they do go supernova, they're not likely to affect the Earth. So,
So
yeah,
at
it's
thi
good that these are far away and we're unlikely to be impacted.
so that means I won't have to join a doomsday cult then?
I mean, you can if you want.
I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, the supernova has arrived. It's a sign. Gather your gather your pills, everybody. We're doing this."
But you're going to need to find something other than this because doomsday cults tend to sort of die out either because everyone goes and offs themselves or because the doomsday doesn't happen.
Yeah,
What was his name? Harold Camping, I think?
you for the Heaven's Gate
No, not
one?
Heaven's Gate. He was a doomsday cultist who, like a Christian doomsday cultist, who kept predicting the end of the world
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah,
the
yeah,
second coming and so on.
yeah.
And every time it happened, people were like, hey, we're still here. And he'd be like, oh, I meant it was going to be next week.
Do you what's also gonna be interesting is, you now that you mention it, do you remember the movie 2012 and how people were so amped
Oh,
up
yeah.
about that movie going, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna be the end of the world."
And the science in that movie was so bad. Neutrinos can't mutate.
Now, given what we know, I grant you, given what we know, the science is so bad. How long you reckon before some other famous Hollywood guy comes across this article and make a movie about it?
A supernova disaster movie. I can't
Well,
think of any, but I do know there's some short stories about supernova disasters. There's Inconstant Moon, and one of my favorites, I think it's by Asimov. It's just called The Star, and it's a short story for Christmas. No, it's Clark, not Asimov. About a astronautical expedition to another planet that has gone through a supernova event.
the closest, I just typed up supernova disaster movie, and they just came up with Supernova, a 2005 movie starring Luke Perry and Peter Fonda. And it's a plot summary here. A worldwide scientific conference takes place in Australia where Peter Fonda disappears. His colleague, Luke Perry, and other individuals soon faced with the reality of an impending crisis and attempt to information from the public. While a full-blown supernova doesn't occur, explosion on the sun causes massive damage in Australia and in various parts of the world. Of course, it has to be Australia. Why do we have to get the brunt of it?
Yeah, reminds me a little bit of like just a complete aside, but reminds me a bit of On the Beach, which is an Australian apocalypse story. The
Hmm.
rest of the world wipes itself out with nuclear explosives, and Australia is just like, yeah, what's going on? And then the radiation blows across to Australia, and or just like, well, shit.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll take a short break and then be back with our shoutouts. This week, like the last 2 weeks, we're supported by Res. It's a gaming themed energy drink you can buy for 15% off with the code NERDS15 at drinkrez.com. That's drinkrez.com.
Yeah, this drink maintains mental concentration and focus, relieves weariness and fatigue, decrease mental and cognitive fatigue, and reduces eye strain.
For our shoutouts, we have some more space news. On the 13th of March 1930, Lowell Observatory announced the discovery of Pluto, which between 1930 and 2006 did not complete a single orbit of the Sun before it was demoted to dwarf planet.
Yeah, I'm pissed about that.
Well, if we said Pluto was a planet, we'd have to accept everything. Like, there are so many dwarf planets that we're finding now because we're better at looking at things in space than we were 100 years ago. And we'd have to count them all as planets. And then how long would that mnemonic be?
A long, long mnemonic.
Yes. So Pluto was discovered by Clyde Tombaugh, who would image the sky with photographs, then examine each pair of photographs and determine whether any objects had shifted position. One Plutonian year is 247.94 Earth years, so in 2178, Pluto will complete its first full orbit since discovery.
Imagine if if you were born in Pluto. It's like, you're still not 1 years old, buddy.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. How do you count time in a multiplanetary society? We already have an answer because NASA has rovers on the moon and on Mars, both of which have different day, night, and years to Earth. So, upon announcing the discovery, Lowell Observatory received over 1,000 suggestions for names. The shortlist was Minerva, Pluto, and Cronus. Minerva was rejected because it had been used for an asteroid. Cronus was disfavored because it was promoted by an unpopular and egocentric astronomer, Thomas Jefferson Jackson C. Bit of nominative determinism there. A man who likes to look at space has the name C. They held a vote and chose Pluto. And on the 13th of March 1781, William Herschel discovered Uranus.
No.
How were you trying to pronounce it the other day?
I call it Uranus to make it less offensive.
That's one of my favorite jokes in Futurama. No, Fry, we changed the name 300 years ago so that no one would make that joke ever again. What did you change it to? You wrecked them.
Yeah, okay. I kind of wonder though. In hindsight, did they ever realize? Did the people that discovered the planet? You know what? I hope this planet doesn't become the butt of many jokes.
No, because they named it after a god.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Fair. They named it
So,
after a god, but
it's not the Greek god's fault that their names,
Hmm.
or one of their names, sounds like a butthole in English. The earliest possible observation of Uranus was by Hipparchus in 128 BC. The earliest definite sighting was 1690, when John Flamsteed observed it at least 6 times. William Herschel observed it from his back garden, which can't do that these days, too much light pollution.
bloody clouds.
Herschel initially believed he had spotted a comet. And here we go, DJ, the preferred pronunciation among astronomers
Yeah.
is Uranus, with a long U
Yeah.
and stress on the first syllable.
Ah, that's one way of putting.
Yep, it can be compared to the other pronunciation, Uranus, with a long A. I don't actually read IPA pronunciations. I'm just making this up as I go along based on the descriptions.
Yep. Oh, by the way, I found a website that does the whole interplanetary birthdays. So, yeah, it's a website here. It's called by exploratorium.edu. And it basically calculates. You put your birthday there, and it calculates your Mercurian age, your Venusian age, your Earth age, your Martian age, your Jovian age, your Saturnian age, your Uranian age, your Neptunian age, and your Plutonian age.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll put this on the show notes. You can calculate how old they are in the planets.
Well, Herschel initially named the planet George's star after King George III, but they didn't reach the consensus on Uranus until 70 years later. And DJ, what is our messed up moment for this week?
Since Invincible has ended and interestingly, and I don't want the guy who but there was a final fight between the guy who plays as Invincible in Yun and Negan. I decided to put out the Walking Dead, which is with Lucille, or as the Walking Dead fans will say. You've seen that scene, right?
I'm aware of it. The guy with the bat with the spikes on it beats some people up with the bat with the spikes on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this was because that was the most disturbing part, was because they after the identity of the victim was revealed and we had to endure Negan delivering blow after blow to the skull, we had to watch something even worse, and that's a big was a big bad move to Stephen Yeun, who does the character of Glenn. And man, some of that, and you see the last image of Glenn with his left eyeball popping out of his skull, while the former pizza delivery guy turned apocalyptic hero struggled to say his final words, which was, "Maggie, I'll find you," his devastated wife, while coughing up his own blood. That's so messed up. Still messed
Well, our wacky movie is The Relic from the 13th of March 1997, which released in Hong Kong. A homicide detective and an anthropologist try to destroy a South American lizard like god who is on a people eating rampage in a Chicago museum.
It's always Chicago. Something terrible always happens Chicago. Why?
Yeah, I don't think I want to go to Chicago. It was developed by Frank Marshall and someone you might recognize, Kathleen Kennedy.
Jesus. Great. Not the Kathleen Kennedy, right?
Apparently, the Kathleen Kennedy.
Uh,
Because the novel the book is based on by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child didn't portray the museum's administration well, they turned the producers down when they were offered seven figures of money to film them. They were also worried that a monster movie would scare kids away from the museum. So then
yes.
they went to the Museum of Natural History in Chicago, which did allow them to film. They had issues filming on set in Los Angeles, where they built a tunnel flooded with water, and had to shut down when Hyams became too sick to work. The final design of the creature had a spider-like head and a 15-foot long body as an amalgamation of a lion, an alligator, and a horse, with reptilian scales and tufts of hair. Due to the movie having no stars and films like Scream coming out at the same time, it was expected to bomb, but it performed 5 times higher than originally expected. And in all of this, the Kofoga, which is the creature, has about 4 minutes of screen time.
Pretty short.
Yeah, well, when you look at these horror movies, like the amount of time that the shark is on screen in Jaws is a tiny fraction of the movie.
Okay. I wonder how long would it be for. Oh, here we go. There's someone said here in the monster movies are higher tomato meter averages associated with films that showcase their monsters for more than 4 minutes, while films like Jaws and Aliens achieve success by revealing their creatures later with limited screen time.
Yeah, because nothing is scarier than the thing that you can't see. Once you know it's there, your mind is able to lock onto it and recognize it.
Yeah.
And the monster was named the Kofoga, possibly because the name of the monster in the novel is almost unpronounceable. Mub1.
Man, you're really killing it with the names today.
And the first victim of the Kofoga is a security guard, played by the same actor who was the animal handler killed by a velociraptor in the first scene of Jurassic Park. So he is both the first character to die on screen in both movies, and also killed by creatures designed by Stan Winston.
What an honor.
So that's all we have for you this week. Look after yourselves, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and any other social media stuff. Stay happy, stay nerdy, and check out Res at drinkrez.com for the 15% site-wide discount with the code word NERDS15. See you guys.